What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who Classic Review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the second Doctor Patrick Troughton story, The War Games. Yes, this is Patrick Troughton's final story as the second Doctor in his era. It is his final story, The War Games, the marathon 10-part story. This is, I believe, the second longest Doctor Who story of all time. The first being, I think it's the Daleks' Master Plan. However, that was 12 parts long. However, that one's not available on DVD. It's not available in its, entirety. There's a lot of missing episodes of it. This one is available in its entirety. All 10 parts are available, and we have the DVD. We don't have the DVD for the Daleks' Master Plan, so yeah. It is the longest story you can fully watch at the moment on a DVD. So this is The War Games by Terrance Dicks and Malcolm Hulke. The TARDIS is materialised in a world of trench warfare, barbed wire and poison gas, the Western Front 1917. In the chaos and paranoia of the First World War, the Doctor and his companions are separated from their ship, captured and court-martialed. The death sentence is swiftly pronounced. But all is not as it seems, as the Doctor finds himself increasingly out of his depth and facing impossible odds. The only solution is the truly unthinkable. He must seek help from those he most fears, his own people, the Time Lords. So yeah, it's a pretty chaotic sort of little synopsis, a pretty small synopsis actually, considering this is a 10-part story that has quite a lot going on in it. I mean, for 10 parts long, you really do have to have a lot happening. So yeah, let's get on to the cast. Alright, so Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. Oh, I'm loving him more and more the more I watch his run. He is so good, and he's really good in this one as well. I think this is the 5th Patrick Troughton story I've seen now, and I haven't had a bad moment with him. He hasn't had a bad performance once. He's just really good. Every time I watch an episode, I like him more, and honestly, I think he moves up my Doctor ranking every single time. I absolutely love Patrick Troughton. He's such a good Doctor. He's just such a good actor in general. He has really funny little moments, but he has some really serious moments. I love how the second Doctor's he's a little bit cowardly in a lot of ways. He gets scared quite a lot. He doesn't quite man up like a lot of the other Doctors do, and I really like that. It makes his Doctor so unique. He's probably one of the most unique Doctors in that way, in the way that he does get scared, and he is a little bit of a pussy sometimes, I suppose. And I really like that. He does it so well, and in this episode especially, he goes out with a bang because he has an absolutely blasting performance throughout the whole thing. Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon, once again, much like Patrick Troughton as the Doctor. Jamie's he's a companion, he's a character that I like more and more every time. I absolutely love Jamie. He's becoming one of my favourite companions as well. Patrick Troughton's becoming one of my favourite Doctors. Jamie, Fraser Hines is becoming one of my favourite companions. I just love him so much. His dynamic especially with Patrick Troughton, is amazing. I mean, when you consider that he was in the second Doctor's, pretty much the second Doctor's whole run. I think there was only one, maybe 2 stories that he wasn't in. I think it's actually only 1, and the rest of them he's in. It's like he was in it the whole time, and he's so good. He has the best chemistry with Patrick Troughton, and he also has very good chemistry with Wendy Padbury, who plays Zoe Herriot. Yeah, I do quite like Zoe. This is only, I think, the second time I've seen her. I think the only other time was in The Seat of Death, and yeah, I do quite like her. She's not, at the moment, I don't like her quite as much as I like, Jamie, and there are definitely other female companions that I do prefer to her, but there's something about her, I think she's from the 21st century, which, is now for us. She definitely seems very technologically advanced for the time, and, she knows a lot of things, and she's a big contrast to Jamie, but then the chemistry between them still is really good. So yeah, all the companions and the Doctor are very good in this one. As for the other cast, there's a lot of other cast in this one. There is so much guest cast, so I'm not really going to go through them, but I think on the whole they're all pretty good. The only cast member that I wasn't really a big fan of was James Bree as the security chief. I didn't really like the security chief. I didn't like the way he talked. He sounded like a robot to me. So yeah, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but everyone else, absolutely amazing. Alright, so let's get on to the good and the bad, starting off with the good. An exciting start getting thrown into World War I. This episode starts literally straight away with the Doctor landing in what is at the time 1917. The First World War is raging on, and he basically gets thrown straight into the trenches instantly. And it's just, there's so much action and adventure right at the start of this story, and it goes all the way through. The pacing for this is something that I was very worried about. Like I said before, I think I get worried with 6-part stories because 6-parters for me often do drag quite a lot. So I was thinking, this is a 10-part story. This is not gonna be my cup of tea. I much prefer the 4-parters on the whole. However, amazingly, this is 10 parts long, and for me, it doesn't really drag at all. I think maybe the final part where they're with the Time Lords, I think that bit does drag a little bit, but it's still nothing bad. So yeah, the pacing in this one's amazing. You know, they get straight into the action. It's just really, really good in that aspect. The Doctor yelling at the prison officer, I think, was really cool. You know, having a massive yell at the prison officer. You know, telling him, you know, I can't exactly remember, but he's just going off at him, and I think he does such a good job there, Patrick Troughton. Really, you know, he's just yelling, and it's just perfect acting. All the different times and places together, it's a really interesting concept. I did like that whole thing, you know, how they got the map out, and there's kind of all these divisions, these different times and places. You know, you've got 1917 with the First World War, you've got, I think, the Roman Empire, you've got you know, a bunch of Mexicans at some point in time as well, and they're all just on this, they're all on this one planet, but they're all kind of put into different sections, and I really think that's pretty cool. And you know, if you want to go between the two, it's kind of this really weird mist to go between the two, you know, different zones, and I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah, just a really nice concept. You know, it means that we get a change of scenery all the time. You know, from 1917 to the Mexican area, to you know, the Romans, to the control room where, you know, the Time Lord is and all that stuff's going on, where it's all kind of taking place. Just such a good change in scenery, and the concept of the time zones in that is absolutely amazing. The machine that makes people tell the truth, I thought that was pretty cool. You know, first of all, you had that the machine that goes over people's heads, and it makes them what does that one make them do? I think they like somehow like brainwash them to make them you know, work to make the enemies, you know, the Time Lord, you know, the Warlord, the War Chief. It makes people kind of work for them, I suppose. But then you have that thing which looks like a VR headset, a really big VR headset that you know, makes people tell the truth, and I think that's a really cool thing. I mean, you know, that's it. It does just look like it looks like an Oculus Rift or something. It's pretty funny actually, looking back at it. But yeah, a really cool thing. You know, they use it. It makes people tell the truth. I think that's a really cool concept. And I also love how when they try and do it on the Doctor, he resists it because he's a Time Lord. You know, he has all the you know how Time Lords, they're kind of, I think they're a bit telepathic or something. You know, he just kind of thinks, and he kind of blocks it out of his mind so that it doesn't make him tell the truth. He just blocks it out. I think that's also really cool. So yeah, really cool little thing there. The Time Lord message cubes. Now, mistake me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, should I say? But are those the same cubes that were in the Doctor's wife, the 11th Doctor story? Is that a connection there? I never knew that. If that is the case, they're very similar anyway. You know, they're these cubes which have a bunch of information on them, and they're kind of like messages, and they're Time Lord inventions, and that's exactly what they are in this story. So I'm guessing that is the same thing that was in the Doctor's wife. If so, really cool bringing that back up again in that story, and it's really good here as well. Of course, the Doctor's trial is very good. Like I said, I think episode 10 at the start does drag a little bit. However, once we do get to his proper trial, it really picks up. You know, we have him talking about all the foes that he's you know, defeated and the places he's saved. You know, you have the Yeti coming up, you've got the Crotons, you've got the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Ice Warriors, and I really like that bit. You know, his whole trial is really good. You then, of course, when the Time Lords say, you know, we're going to make you change, we're going to exile you to Earth, and we're going to make you change your appearance for the second time, and he has to go through, you know, all the, he can choose what he looks like, but he doesn't like any of them. You know, he's like, oh, that one's too old, that one's too fat, that one's too skinny, that one's too young. It's just like, oh, none of these will do, that won't do. I love that really funny moment. Just an awesome scene altogether. And then finally, Jamie and Zoe forgetting about their adventures. It's really sad. I really think that is such a sad way to go, especially when Jamie was with the Doctor for so long. To have him just pretty much forget everything is really, really sad. I mean, they remember their first adventure, you know, when they first met the Doctor in their first adventure, but after that, they don't remember anything else. It's literally, they had that adventure, and then the Doctor left and they stayed where they were. So I think that is so sad, especially for Jamie, who was with the Doctor for so long. Really, really sad way to have him depart the series, but at the same time, a really bloody good way. Alright, there are a couple of bad things I do want to talk about. They're pretty minor things, to be honest, but there are a couple. The first thing, like I mentioned earlier with the cast, the security chief, I didn't really like him. As a character, he worked. He was perfect as a character, with what he was doing, what his role was. I just didn't like the way he was portrayed. I don't know if that was the actor who was doing it like that, if he was told to do it like that. He had this really robotic voice. He just didn't speak like a human. Now, I don't know if he was a human. He wasn't a Time Lord, I know that, but I'm not 100% sure if he was a human. However, he wasn't a robot, from what I was aware of, and that's how he talked. He was like, I don't like what's happening here. What are you doing? It's like, why are you talking like that? That doesn't make sense to me. I didn't really like that. It was a bit off-putting. The only other thing really for me is the lack of music in places. I think, when the music does come in, it's very, very good, but there were a lot of moments, a lot of fight scenes where there could have been some music and there just wasn't. And it just felt a bit cheesy and a bit cringy when there wasn't music when there really should have been, and it would have just emphasized, some dramatic moments, some emotional moments as well, to have some music there. So yeah, that was a little bit not the best, but I mean, to be honest, these two things are pretty nitpicky. Alright, so on the whole, what did I think of the War Games? I think it was really, really good. I'm actually quite surprised. I'd heard good things about this. I'd heard people saying that it was absolutely amazing. A lot of people giving it 10s out of 10, but I wasn't so sure, I was going into this thinking, it's a 10-part story. I get bored with 6-parters a lot of the time. What am I going to think of this? But even though I did watch this over technically 3 days, I watched the first 3 parts one evening, I watched parts 4 to 8 the next evening, and then literally just watched parts 9 and 10 this morning. Even though I did space it out quite a bit, I really enjoyed this. Now, I don't think I'd ever watch all 10 parts at once. It's too much. It's like almost 4 hours, I think, or close to that, 3.5, 4 hours. So I don't think I'd ever do that. But, spacing it out 5 parts at a time, I think would work. It's really, really good. I've really enjoyed it. So I'm going to give the War Games a 9.5 out of 10. I really want to give it a 10. I think, the fact that it is 10 parts long and it doesn't bore me really deserves to have it as a 10 out of 10. I think everything's really, really good about it. It's just the fact that the lack of music and that one performance with the security chief put me off a little bit, but not enough to really diminish it too much. So yeah, a 9.5 is what I'm going to give the War Games. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.